A system of lies. We'll talk about that tonight. Dave Rubin is here. Even Joe Biden is taking shots at Dome. All that's coming up on I'm Right. You know, there's such thing as intelligence when it comes to people. Now, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I can't do the whole verbal IQ versus this IQ and the id and the ego, and I don't know what any of these words mean. But I do know I had a really smart doctor tell me, a psychiatrist tell me one time, that there's different kinds of intelligence. Hold on, I'm going somewhere with this. There's different kinds of intelligence, right? There's the kind of people, I have an oldest son like this, where he can read a book about animals, and then he just remembers everything that was in the book. Hey, James, what's the average length of a rhino's horns? And he'll just comes out with it. What? I could never do that. So that's one kind of intelligence. Another kind of intelligence, you probably know people like this, maybe you are one, is people intelligence. Some people are just given by God the talent to know how to have a conversation, how to work a room. Lots of these people go into sales. They just know instinctively what people want to hear, what they don't want to hear, when to shut up, when to speak, when to make a joke, when to not make a joke. They're just very, very, very good with people. You probably know people like this. Joe Biden, I find him to be very, very fascinating. And this is why. It's not just because his brain is just rotted away to nothing now. It's because Joe Biden has been in politics for so long. And yet Joe Biden appears to, when it comes to the people intelligence, he appears to be so on the low end that he is borderline special needs. And I really do mean that. I don't know that I've ever seen a politician this bad when it comes to messaging and what people want to hear and what they don't want to hear. Now, before I play Nancy Pelosi, who's doing it right, and Joe Biden, who's doing it wrong, I want you to think about this. I want you to think about, maybe you're taking off this weekend. You're going off on a beach vacation, and you give me a call. Hey, Jesse, would you house sit for us on the weekend? And maybe I don't have anything going on, and maybe you have a big TV and some bourbon for me. And I say, sure. I'll house sit for you on the weekend. And I come over, house sit. You're texting me throughout. Is everything going good? Everything's great. You show back up Monday morning. I'm at the house. And the kitchen is on fire. The upstairs bathroom is flooding. The water's actually coming through the ceiling in the downstairs. There's a gigantic hole the size of me in one of the walls. One of the doors is falling off. Totally a disaster in the home. Now, there are two different things I can do at this point in time if I'm the one watching the house. I can, A, tell you, hey, I mowed the lawn. No, don't worry about the fire and the water and stuff like that. Hey, I mowed the lawn out back. Come on back. Let me see. I even trimmed the hedges and everything. Let me show you how good that looks. Now, does that make what I did to the house better? No, but maybe it does ease some of the anger off. Or I can take the alternate tactic, the Joe Biden tactic, and I can tell you, what? This house looks better now than it did before. I don't even know what you're talking about. I've actually helped. Sorry, the water damage makes the colors look brighter. Now, I know you're going to be angry no matter what. Which one would make you more angry? I want you to listen to two different politicians. One who understands people. The other, man, he doesn't.
When I hear people talk about inflation, as I heard him there, we have to change that subject.
Yes, our economy is strong as hell.
Okay. What? That doesn't make any sense at all. Moving on to this little example. Joe Biden. Lying endlessly. He lies endlessly about everything. Here's Joe Biden. Now, keep in mind, the student loan forgiveness. There was no laws. There was not a bill passed. There was nothing. It was a wildly illegal executive order. Only Joe Biden doesn't know that because Joe Biden's not a fully functional adult. And it really is. It is something that I think about sometimes. I think about Jill Biden, Dr. Jill, and I think about what an elder abuser that woman is. I want you to think about what Joe Biden actually knows about his own presidency. Here's Joe Biden talking about passing student loan forgiveness.
Secondly, if you don't have one of those loans, you just get 10,000 written off. It's passed. I got it passed by a vote or two.
I got it passed by a vote or two? Which votes were those, Joe? Could you tell us, Joe? What were the deciding votes? You know what? Let's set that one aside. Joe, you've only been in office a couple years, Mr. President. Could you walk me through the 2 years of your presidency? I want to hear details. I want to hear about the backroom deals, the phone calls, the emails. This guy voted for this guy voted for that. If you knew how non-functional the president was, you'd be more worried than you are. Which brings us to the border. Because I had this thought this weekend. We're at a time right now that is obviously very, very dangerous. Very dangerous for a variety of reasons, economically and FBI-wise too. And this is what I mean. It's not just that the FBI is going after Joe Biden's political opponents. They're now the Cheka. They're now a weaponized arm of the Democratic Party focused on school board parents and pro-lifers and all these other things. But remember, there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many people you have. So if you're spending all that time going after pro-lifers who read Bible verses at abortion clinics, you know what you're not doing? You're not going after the people who may be here to do something very, very bad. I'm talking about people who've crossed the border illegally. Have you made this connection yet? 2.37 million encounters this year. That's the most ever. Over 600,000, 599,000 known gotaways this year. By the way, that number is north of 900,000 for Joe Biden's presidency. Now, before we get to Mayorkas lying about this, I want you to think about something. So we have the FBI spending all their time attacking you, Second Amendment lovers, people like that. But you know what they're not doing? They're not looking into the 900,000 people who are gotaways. Now, what does a gotaway mean? Well, you see lots of the illegal immigrants who come to the border, they purposely turn themselves into Border Patrol because they know our insane, suicidal immigration policy will allow them in 3 hots and a cot and they'll never get deported. However, there are other kinds. There are cartels who bring not just themselves, they bring others from nation states to our border, and they'll actually use the civilians who are trying to get themselves turned in to gobble up Border Patrol resources in a particular area so they can then go to this area and get away. Hey, you women and children, run up there and turn yourselves in. Okay, Border Patrol's distracted. Let's go, guys, get them across. But we don't know who those 900,000 people are. How many of those 900,000 people are Al-Qaeda? How many of those 900,000 people are Chinese intelligence, Russian intelligence? Remember, these people got away. No one talked to them. No one scanned them. Not a little wand of a metal detector or anything like that. They got away. How many of those 900,000 people strolled across our southern border with a tactical nuclear weapon in a backpack on their back? You do understand that is the consequence of throwing your border open and having a state law enforcement arm that has become the Cheka and only political. What happens is we have 900,000 people who purposely tried not to get caught at the border, and we don't have any idea where they are, who they are, what they brought with them, what they're doing with any of it. Have you considered what it might feel like one morning if, God forbid, this happens? I about said what it's going to feel like, but I really hope this doesn't happen. But have you considered Russia's already out there threatening the use of nuclear weapons, calling us a hostile actor? Have you considered what it might feel like one morning to wake up, grab your phone, roll over, and think, New York City is ash? Have you thought about that? Because you're living in a time when it could easily happen. But don't worry, the border's secure.
The border is secure.
Congressman, the border is secure. We're executing our plan.
and I've been very clear and unequivocal in that regard.
I want to repeat my assurance to our audience this morning that the border is, in fact, secure.
So we are a nation of lies, but we are also a nation very much in danger. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. Saw something out of Minnesota, and there are a lot of people lying about it today, and it's got me all kinds of steamed. We're going to talk about that next with Dave Rubin. Before we talk about that, I'll tell you about something else. High heat. No, this is not about baseball. This is about cooking. As you know, I'm no world's expert on cooking, but I have been obsessing, especially in recent years, with making homemade pizzas. That's our thing. As a family, we love to try to make homemade pizzas, and we gather in the kitchen, and we got all the dough and the flour, and we're trying to make pizzas, and we're adding toppings. And here's the truth. They suck every time. Every time. You either can't get the cheese melty until the crust is black, the crust isn't done enough, it's too this, it's too that. So I talked to pizza guys, restaurant guys I know. Hey, why can't I do it? Why can't I do it? We've tried everything. He said, you're not hot enough. Not me personally, obviously. He said, the oven isn't hot enough. Your home oven cannot get hot enough. Schwank grills, they're not just portable. So it's at your tailgate. It's in your backyard. Bring it over to a friend's house. It's not just that they're portable. They cook at 1,500 degrees. That steak you want to cook, it really should go on the Schwank grill, be done in 4 or 5 minutes. That pizza, you want the greatest pizza ever? Make it at home in a Schwank grill. 3 minutes, pull it out of the oven. Enjoy better pizza than you can order. These things are freaking sweet. Great gifts, by the way, too. And right now, for my viewers, they have $150 off. $150 off. You have to go to schwankgrills.com. Promo code Jesse gets you $150 off. Enjoy. Schwankgrills.com, promo Jesse. We'll be back.
Did you guys go a little overboard on suing businesses for not having masks and stuff?
No, what we did is we saved lives, Eric. Almost everybody put their customers and their employees first. We had some people who didn't. We tried to negotiate with them, and they wouldn't listen. And so we could not allow them to flout the law.
Joining me now, my friend Dave Rubin, obviously host of the Rubin Report. Dave, politicians have always been tyrants. They're generally tyrannical scumbags who think they should rule over us. I understand that. But at least they used to hide that in this country. They used to at least pretend, the people. I'm just a servant of the people. These people are really, really comfortable speaking to us in this way now. Don't flout the law, Dave. I'll send someone after you. Who do these people think they are?
Jesse, could I make a request of your crack tech team to put noted flouter of the law under my name? Would that be possible? Because... believe it or not, I did not force my employees to be injected with anything. Some days at the height of COVID, I would ask, hey, how are you feeling? And they'd say, fine. And then we'd go about our day. And they'd say to me, how you feeling? I'd say, fine. And then we'd continue to do work. But your point about that they now say the quiet part out loud actually is a salient one. I mean, it's really incredible. They are showing you that they are the tyrants. And this really is the key to almost everything that progressives do. There is a very, very thin veneer of tolerance. They scream about tolerance all the time, so you'd think that tolerance would be a pretty wide set of ideas. But actually all it is a thin veneer. And once you pull it off, you will see basically the full gamut of time-tested worst ideas possible. If they can use the government or corporate power to force you into doing something that they see fit for you, they will damn well do it. And that's why we all have to fight back the way that guys like us are trying.
Dave, is this our fault, though? I mean, I thought about that. Like, I got steamed when I saw that clip. I did the whole, who does he think he is thing? And then I thought to myself, maybe he knows exactly who he's dealing with. Let's be honest. Not you, obviously, but a huge percentage of this country. So, okay, I will go home. But maybe he understands who he rules over.
Ooh, I like that question, Jesse. You're pretty decent at this job. Yes, that's a good one. Look, if you saw if you saw, I can't believe I'm going to quote this movie because it was a terrible movie, but I'm going to try here. If you saw the remake or whatever they did with that last Matrix movie, at the end, Neil Patrick Harris's character basically is saying, at the end of the day, humans just want control. And he's kind of right. I mean, who would have thought, before COVID, that in essence, people would beg the government to put them in masks and beg the government to keep them at home and beg the government to make sure they couldn't go to work or go to the park. Or I lived in Los Angeles at the time where they literally took basketball hoops down so you couldn't even be outside with other people. Yet an awful lot of people wanted it. So I think the great challenge for the majority of us, and I do believe it is the majority because I think something has happened 2 years post this nonsense, the majority of us now just need to start behaving like the majority. And I don't mean that like we have to bully everyone into believing what we believe. We have to start saying no more of this nonsense. We will, and because it's coming back. They'll, whether it's COVID-9 or monkeypox 6 or climate lockdowns or whatever, this was a test. You push people in small ways and then eventually you push harder. This was a test. I would say we, and I would include us in this too, because we all were part of it to one degree or another. We failed the first test and we better wisen up before the next test.
Yeah, that's true. All right, speaking of bullying, I'm starting to see some things I like at the state level. Obviously, the federal government sucks. I have no hope there whatsoever, but the state level is impressing me. This guy, Eric Schmidt, running for Senate in Missouri, he's their current AG. He's deposing Fauci, Jen Psaki, the corrupt FBI agent who coordinated with Facebook to suppress the Hunter Biden thing. Are we finally getting some sort of a GOP with guts? I know it's a slow process, but my goodness, these people actually look like they plan on playing some offense.
Yeah, it's funny. I always say on my show that you don't have to be a Republican, but you can't be a Democrat. Well, you know what? I think a lot of people could proudly be Republicans if we got more of this kind of attitude. And we're seeing it, by the way. It's not just Schmidt. I mean, we're seeing this in Arizona. Look at Kari Lake. Look at Blake Masters. Look what's going on in Ohio with J.D. Vance. I would say even Dr. Oz is getting some mojo now. I think there is going to be a new crop of people. And yes, they're going to do it at the state level. As you know, I left Cali, crazy Cali. I'm in free Florida. And man, it's not just that the government's out of your way here. It's that once the government's out of your way, people live in a better fashion. They're happier. They want to get out of bed and go to work and say hi to neighbors and increase that spirit of humanity. That is really what it's all freaking about. So I think this is going to completely happen at the state level, and we're just going to see the further divergence between the blue and red states, which, by the way, is kind of how it was intended to be.
You hear what Dave just said, everybody? Dave's done it. He moved from blue to red. I've done it. I've moved from blue to red, and I try to tell all of you who are considering it, the small day-to-day interactions you have every single day make your entire life better. It's not just about taxes. Your entire life is markedly better when you live in an area where people share your values. All right, Dave, speaking of values, over the weekend, I'm sure you saw this one, maybe the lowest moment in the history of the presidency. Here's the president being interviewed by something.
Do you think states should have a right to ban gender-affirming health care?
I don't think any state or anybody should have the right to do that. As a moral question and as a legal question. I just think it's wrong.
Okay, Dave, everyone in the country, no matter who they are, everyone in the country, 99% of them look at that and they think, okay, come on, this is not even being serious. What are we doing here? And yet, this is not the first time they've done something like this. You have some child trans person from TikTok coming to sit down with the President of the United States of America. Do you think these people know or care just how genuinely unserious they look?
I don't know if they know or care, but I kind of want them to keep doing it at this point, right? Like, keep going, guys. Most people are worried. Most people are worried about the economy, supply chain, I don't know, nuclear war, but you guys keep wanting to doing this stuff. It's not only, there's so many levels of craziness with that interview. First off, Biden's answer, let's just do the easy stuff first. Biden's answer is horrific. Morally or legally, what is he saying? Actually, states do have rights. And as far as morals, I don't know, I consider it fairly moral to not chop children's genitals off. I don't know if that makes me the extremist, but here we are. As for the person whose name is Dylan McIlvaney, I think, who is doing the interviewing. I mean, we covered this on my show, and I have to turn to my producer right before we go live on air and say, does the chick who's interviewing Biden have a penis or not? We have a real problem here, and if we don't start dealing with this properly, it's going to spin more and more out of control. By the way, I never got an answer to
I'll
that.
tell you.
He's got safe search on.
Dad, I'll
Google,
tell you
so I don't
something.
know.
I don't know what you have to go through, Dave, but I'll tell you this: as a straight man, you have to wake up, and now these people are turning more and more into women. You don't know what you're looking at. They're going to start being hot, and that presents a real problem for some of us. All right, Dave. Now, Marco Rubio's
Jesse,
campaign.
gay or straight? This is we are good to go here. You and I.
Marco Rubio. On a sad note, Marco Rubio put something out online. One of his people was going door to door and got the daylights beat out of him, praying for him. Guy's got internal bleeding. Guy's got a broken jaw. He's going to be in some pain for quite some time. And I'm scared to ask the question because I think I know the answer. Dave, is this just what we are now? Is this just going to just be the norm? Because it's been the norm for 6 years now.
Yeah, I don't like to take, one instance here or there and then say, okay, this is, I hate the phrase the new norm also as a general rule, but, so look, especially in a place like Florida, this happened in Hialeah, which is a, sort of a suburb of Miami. Florida obviously is basically a red state, but I would say beyond that, Florida is a very tolerant place. Nobody's hunting down gays. Nobody's hunting down black people or anything else. Florida really is a rich place that is the full tapestry of what America is. This is a horrific instance. Unfortunately, I tweeted it out this morning. There is zero chance that will be on CNN. So then all of the non-playable characters, the NPCs who watch corporate media, they don't get to see when a bunch of leftist activists attack a young conservative or Republican, whatever he might be. However, we know for sure, had it been the reverse, this is wall-to-wall coverage. And that asymmetry, I think, is what's driving so much of the craziness. So it might be the new norm because, we cover it online and we'll talk about it, but half of the country just won't see it. And then that creates the tension.
Dave Rubin, thank you, my friend. Come back soon.
Jesse, right before I sat down with you today, I had to Google whether you had a penis, and the results were a little bizarre. I'll call you after the show.
Let me know what you found out. Thanks, Dave. All right. Now, do you remember there's been this super sharp guy on television? I forget his name. Starts with a J. There's a super sharp guy on television. He's been telling his audience for a long time that when the president speaks, the world watches. That we forget that sometimes as Americans. The president speaks, the world watches. You don't watch when the Japanese leader speaks. Of course you don't. You're an American. When the French leader speaks, the entire world watches when our president speaks, and they're making decisions and they're mocking him. Remember who said that? It starts with a J. It'll come to me. Anyway, there's no new news out on that, and it's kind of embarrassing. We'll talk about that in a moment. Let's talk about this really quickly, though. It's a headline. It's just one of those headlines you should pay attention to. You know what the diesel supply is in the United States of America? 25 days. We right now, because of the Joe Biden administration, we have 25 days worth of diesel in the country. When's the last time you went to the grocery store? Did you go this weekend? Maybe last week? Did you enjoy all that food on the shelf? All of it. Bread, meat, shampoo, whatever. Well, you probably don't eat shampoo. You know what I mean. Did you enjoy all the things on the shelves? You know what every single one of those things had in common? Everyone. Every single one of those things required diesel fuel to get it from where it was to the grocery store so you could buy it. Do you have your emergency 3-month food kit yet? We like to think that we don't need these things because we're Americans. And the grocery stores will always be full, and the entire history of the world says that is just not true. My Patriot Supply has 3-month food kits. Every single person who lives in your home needs a 3-month food kit. They have partnered with the show. They got them $250 off each kit now. Go. If you got 4 people, buy 4 of them. If you live alone, just get 1. Protect yourself now. Now. Go to preparewithjessekelly.com. That's how you get $250 off. Preparewithjessekelly.com. We'll be back. Who Who is that sharp guy on TV anyway who's been telling you the world watches when our president speaks? Oh, yeah, that was me. And I need to clarify something. I know we played tons of clips of Joe Biden not being a fully functional adult, and we laugh because that's all we can do. And it is funny. It is. But we are talking about world-changing consequences for electing a man who is not a fully functional adult. We've had this conversation so many times, we don't have to have it again. When the president gives a speech, any speech, the world watches. China gets its intelligence and military officials in a room and they watch, they analyze. They analyze facial tics and things like that. Like they analyze it if you're healthy, they're trying to figure out who's who, what's what. Countries like Russia do the same thing. Why? Because the commander-in-chief is a really, 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 really important position in a nation. And if you have one that's not fully functional or compromised or degenerating before your eyes, well, that presents opportunities if you're an enemy of the country. Did you hear what the United States Chief of Naval Operations had to say about China?
It's not just what President Xi says, but it's how the Chinese behave and what they do. And what we've seen over the past 20 years is that they have delivered on every promise they've made earlier than they said they were going to deliver on it. So when we talk about the 2027 window, in my mind, that has to be a 2022 window or potentially a 2023 window. I can't rule that out. I don't mean at all to be alarmist by saying that. It's just that we can't wish that away.
China is going to invade Taiwan. They are. You know why? Because they mean what they say and they've been saying they're going to. They don't even acknowledge the existence of Taiwan. That's how adamant they are that Taiwan is still part of China. They'll cancel movie stars for saying the name Taiwan. China puts out maps and Taiwan isn't there. Well, it's not called Taiwan. It's just not there. But why? Why would China do this now? I mean, why would Russia invade Ukraine? Why would you do such a thing? Well, here's why.
Tim Ryan in Ohio said he doesn't want you there. Warnock said wouldn't say. Do you think they're making a mistake?
No, there are 16 there I've already gone in for yet, and a lot more are asked. Another 20 or so. So I'm going to be going in.
What? And look at it is funny. Well, the 16 have been asked, 25 beavers and ducks. It is funny. But what do you think China thinks when they look at that? Do you think China is going to take the chance on Trump coming back to the White House? Heavy D going to the White House? Any fully competent, confident adult going into the White House? Why would you, if you're China, always put yourself in your enemy's shoes, no matter how much you hate him. If you're China, explain to me why you'd wait. It's not why you'd invade. You already know they want to invade. They believe it's theirs. Why would you wait? Why would you take a chance? Of course they're going to go. We know they're watching. We know they're laughing. I've been telling you this for a long time. We have confirmation today, courtesy of the Wall Street Journal. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman had this to say. He mocked the president in private, making fun of his gaffes, questioning his mental acuity, according to people from within the Saudi government. Gee, I don't know. It turns out it might be dangerous to have a president who can't stay awake during interviews.
I have not made that formal decision, but it's my intention. My intention to run again. And we have time to make that decision.
Dr. Biden is for it. Mr. President. Oh.
Dr. Biden thinks that, my wife thinks that we're doing something very important.
Speaking of Dr. Biden, she is his wife. What are you doing, Dr. Biden? Look, I am sure, I'll never have the pleasure, but I am sure it is a good life being First Lady. I mean, you're first lady. Haven't been that many of them, right? You're so important. Flying on Air Force One, surrounded by security, which you'll have the rest of your life. Flying all over the world. Meeting important people, fancy hotels, fancy meals. Look at your Rolodex growing. Look at your 401k growing. I know, Jill, I know it must be a good life being first lady. But you are married, and your husband is not a functional adult. Let's set America aside in the eyes of Jill. Forget about the fact he can easily plunge us into World War III. What are you doing as his wife, allowing your husband to deteriorate like this in front of the planet? That is vile, elder abusing stuff. If you know what, set that aside, me. Now I don't even have an important job, right? I do TV and radio. But if every single night I came on here on TV and I don't even know, I want some Captain Crunch cereal. Every single night I came and sat down, and let's say no one at the First stepped in, because they are very wonderful people at the First. They probably would let it go for a little bit. Hey, Jesse isn't doing well, but let's say they let it go. How long do you think it would be if I came on television every single night and embarrassed myself before my wife stepped in, made a phone call to the suits at the First and said, hey, find someone else. He's done. I can't allow my husband to be embarrassed on television every single night. Doesn't even enter Jill Biden's mind. Doesn't even enter his mind. Oh, he's counting the seconds and he's going to be gone, though.
I think it's a legitimate thing to be concerned about anyone's age, including mine. I think that's totally legitimate. But I think the best way to make the judgment is to watch me. Am I slowing up? Don't have the same pace? I could get a disease tomorrow. I could, drop dead tomorrow. But in terms of my energy level, in terms of how much I'm able to do, I think people should look and say, does he still have the same passion for what he's doing? And if they think I do and I can do it, then that's fine. If they don't, then they should vote against me. Not against me, they should encourage me not to go. But that's not how I feel. I can't even say the age I'm going to be. I can't even get it out of my mouth.
Hey, he's doing great. All right. Climate change nutters. We'll make fun of them here in a moment. Before we get to them, let's get to this. Let's get to The Air You Breathe. That's a great song by the Hollies, by the way. But anyway, The Air You Breathe in your home. And we talk a lot of times when we talk about Eden Pure, we talk about the smells, right? Talk about smells, talk about allergies. We don't really talk enough about viruses and mold. Those are bad things to be breathing in. And Eden Pure is not like your other air purifier, where you have the filter that's got dust clogging up, and every year you have to go buy a new one trying to vacuum it out. Eden Pure doesn't, there's no filter to replace. It's just this little black box. And as you look at it over there, hardly making any noise at all, you should know it's cleaning your air, not covering up, cleaning it. Viruses and mold dying in your Eden Pure. You and your entire family healthier because you went out and bought yourself a 3-pack of Eden Pure Thunderstorm. They have 3 packs for sale for my viewers. Go to EdenPureDeals.com. Code Jesse gets you $200 off a 3-pack. EdenPureDeals.com. Code Jesse. We'll be back.
Ever taken in. The problem is we spent nearly $7 trillion, and that's what
we do cover climate here, guys. We do cover climate.
Ladies, excuse us. Let us do our job. Let us do our job. We hear what you have to say, but you got to go.
Joining me now, Marc Morano, author of The Great Reset, Global Elites in the Permanent Lockdown. Marc, all right, we have these nutballs. People have seen all the internet videos. They're tossing potatoes and paint on Van Gogh paintings. They're interrupting stuff with the view. And what happens, Marc, is people on the right, they get confused what they're looking at. Meaning they see it, it looks awful. They think it looks awful to everyone, and they're not wrong. So they don't understand the tactic behind it. Marc, would you explain why they do this?
Well, the idea is they want to create chaos. That's the first thing. Now, not only at this level where you can't even have a conversation, or you can't go to an art museum and they're pouring soup on famous paintings, or they're pouring out milk, but also on a much higher level, they want to create this chaos. Supply chain, inflation, energy blackouts, food shortages, meat reductions, car shortages with gas-powered car bans, limits on free speech. Because if you go back to Vladimir Lenin's, essentially his mantra during the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia was the worse, the better. In other words, the more chaos, disruption, and misery you can create and calamity, the better your chance to impose a radical transformation on society. And that's exactly what they're trying to impose. In fact, they openly talk about it. The United Nations, Anthony Fauci, you need radical change in our society in order to survive the climate, to fight viruses. And what you saw there with Ted Cruz, I thought the funniest thing he said during that attack on The View was he said, thank God you have no Van Gogh paintings here. But here's the funniest part. The Hollywood producer, Adam McKay, who did This Way Up or This End Up, whatever the movie was, a kid's movie, gave $4 million to these radicals at Just Oil. And their mantra, actually, their actual website says they believe we face human extinction unless we do something. So they're indoctrinating these young kids. What you see these kind of tactics, and you see the artwork being vandalized and the milk being poured out and all that, that is courtesy of wealthy Hollywood donors, the Rockefeller Foundation, and the Kennedy family.
Now, I need you to explain that for me, Mark, because I don't understand. If I'm a wealthy Hollywood executive or I'm one of the Rockefellers, I've got unlimited funds. I fly private jets and drive fancy Lamborghinis to pick up pretty girls. Why would I want to destroy oil?
I had a plane go right overhead when you said that. But I think you said, why would they want to destroy things? Is that what you're saying? They have it all set? Because
yes.
These, in a sense, they're essentially Bolshevik radicals hiding behind their Bel Air mansions, multiple Bel Air mansions and their private jets. So this is what happens oftentimes with the very wealthy, with the disconnected from the average person. They get these radical views of culture, society, economics, and they start believing that, and of course, everyone's yesing them. If you're a Hollywood producer, the movie was called Don't Look Up. I was saying This End Up. I don't know why I said that, but his name was Adam McKay. He gave $4 million to this climate emergency fund, which funds Just Say No to Oil and all these groups that are going out after paintings and pouring milk and blocking traffic and the whole 9 yards. But we see this happen. We see people like Dick Van Dyke. I mean, he was a Bernie Sanders socialist. We see people for decades in Hollywood espousing these radical views. And I think it's mostly because of a disconnect. But I think we've gone a step further now where they're getting more radical and they're getting bigger budgets and they're getting more aggressive with these tactics. And then we saw that, of course, with the traffic. That's happening all over the world. And where I live, Washington, D.C. area, routinely now, they're blocking the traffic. And it's interesting because it's created a split now. You have people like Michael Mann, the hockey stick creator of the UN climate panel professor. He's actually come out and said, we've got to stop this because we're not winning over any converts. If it makes people think about climate, they'll think they hate climate activists. And then you have people on the other spectrum who are like, this is great. It's headlining in the New York Times. This is the attention we need. So will it work? I don't know. I mean, it's very lowbrow and silly. I had the same thing happen to me at Georgetown University, 2019. They literally shut down my speech while I was speaking, and it was all the organized protesters. 50 showed up singing songs, chanting, wouldn't let me talk. The police had to come in. You lose a whole hour. It's civil disobedience. And I'll tell you what, I don't like these planned ones, but I saw the ones against AOC for the anti-war stuff, or anti-war protesters. And when they do it like that, where it seems more spontaneous and they're yelling and they're trying to get a question and they're angry and it's not scripted and it's not some plot and they don't have props, I think it's much more effective than when they do these, robotic, memorized, stupid lines where they go through like a play act. So I do like to see, I do like the kind of civil disobedience we saw at the town hall with AOC. And I'm talking about whether it's Republican or Democrat. I like that kind because it seems in parent protests. Another example would be the parent protests at school boards, because it was genuine and real. What happens when you get Hollywood funding and Kennedy family and Rockefeller is these protests, even what you saw with Ted Cruz, they're just a bunch of people who go in there and they're told they have to disrupt this and do it. And many times they have these worded out songs and they sing or they have music. It's just nonsense. And it just looks fake. But some of these are real and some of them can be effective. I think the effective ones are what we saw with AOC, parent school board meetings, and that kind of thing.
Marc, I appreciate it, man. Come back soon.
All right. Appreciate it, Jesse. Thank you.
All right. It's time to lighten the mood next, but I want you to think about something real quick. The worse, the better. Remember, you just heard Marc reference it. That was a Lenin line. I remember watching the Antifa BLM animals burn down American cities. And I remember the right telling themselves this gigantic lie that never turns out to be true. They said to themselves, boy, this is going to make voters mad. Oh, man, there's going to be they're just going to get Trump reelected. There's going to be a red wave. People are going to be mad. Democrat president, Democrat House, Democrat Senate. After all that chaos, that doesn't make sense. Chaos in misery is the fertile soil where the communist grows. So that's why he creates it. It's a weird dynamic, but that's why he does it. Always remember that. They create chaos and misery because it's always good for them and not for you. Now, this is why we have to be more purposeful with the corporations where we buy, with our money. You only get to vote once every 2 years. You get to vote with your money every single day. Every single day is election day. Now, the corporations have decided they're all political. Every day is election day. Who'd you vote for today? Public SQ arms you. It's an app. Just pick it up right now, download it on your phone. Public SQ arms you with the information you need. The businesses in your area that share your values. Were you purposeful with where you spent your money today on goods and services? Maybe you weren't. Fine. Download Public SQ and do better tomorrow. It's right there. The database expands every day too. It is your tool, my tool for voting every day. Download Public SQ. We'll be back. All right, it is time to lighten the mood. It's Joe Biden. Joe Biden does provide comedic relief often, especially when he tries to talk about Kamala Harris. We'll get to that in just a moment. Before we get to that, let's get to this real quick. Are you stuck in a timeshare? If you are, you should know you're not alone. People get in these things, and lots of times they enjoy them. I'm not dogging on your timeshare, right? Maybe you made some great memories there. I hope you did, but eventually you fall out of love with it. Stop using it. I'm done. And then what do? Make a phone call, send an email. Hey, we're done with this now. I appreciate it. What happens after that? They say, no, sorry, you should have read the fine print. You're not out. You don't get out. They lock you in and tell you, you're paying these fees forever. Annual fees double in some cases. Lone Star Transfer will get you out. They'll get you out legally. They'll get you out permanently. You're one phone call away. They guarantee it. They guarantee it in writing. They even tell you a time frame. We will get you out by this date. Make one phone call. 844-310-2646. 844-310-2646. Now, Joe Biden. You know, I make a dome joke on occasion. Not often, every now and then. Apparently, Joe Biden got in on the action.
The Vice President of the United States, Vice President Harris. How's she doing? You're almost 2 years in. How's she doing?
She's doing great. She is first of all, she's smart as hell. She has a backbone like a ramrod. She has a backbone like a ramrod.
She has a backbone like a ramrod.
Mr. Producer, you should be ashamed of yourself. I'll see you tomorrow.